Hi everyone. So this is Akash from IoTIFY, and in this simulation we are going to walk you through a complete supply chain simulation. What we are simulating is three suppliers who are supplying widgets for a factory. So we have supplier A, supplier B, supplier C. They are all producing widgets, and all these widgets are being transported to a factory. And in factory we can see the inventory for widget A, widget B, widget C, right? And this factory produces an output by combining one unit of A, one unit of B, and one unit of C, and produces one inventory. So you can see inventory is increasing on once every 10 seconds. And then we have also trucks which are basically moving those supplies, widgets from one place to another. What we also have is a shop floor, which is selling those inventory items. So we have this red truck, which is basically delivering goods, finished goods from the factory to the shop floor. So now we can see this truck is carrying around 17 items from factory, and the shop is currently out of inventory. So you can see it's zero, right? So this is actually bad for your business. So once the truck reaches the shop, we'll see the inventory going up and the truck will unload all its inventory to the shop. Let's just wait for a while. Yeah. So now we see inventory has increased to 16 and the shop is selling one item every iteration. So we see that this inventory is going down again. And now the truck is back to without any payload to the factory to bring more items, right? And similarly, we have three other trucks which are carrying supplies from supplier A to the factory, supplier B to the factory, and supplier C to this factory. So this is, for example, supply truck C, which is now having a payload of 16 widgets. Similarly, this supply truck has no payload right now. It's going to basically get more supplies from supplier B, right? On the other screen, we have a dashboard for Logistic. So this dashboard is developed by us for this demo. And what we have here is that all this information which we just saw in the map is now being shown in the form of a web page. So what I can see right now looking at this dashboard is the shop is again out of the item. So that's why this entire tile is turning red. So shop is completely sold out and you're not able to sell anymore because there's no inventory left. And there's around eight uh, widgets or eight gadgets produced in the factory or nine right now. But unfortunately, there's no truck which is moving. So let's see what is the status. Okay, so the truck has just now delivered the inventory to the shop. So now we can see this truck is now going back to the factory to bring more. And here we can see the shop is now having 17 items and now it's decreasing again. So basically we are selling more and more stuff. On factory side, I can see that I'm a little bit out of A here, right? So, all right. So now my factory is red because we've just run out of 8 and without A, I cannot produce any gadgets, right? So, okay, I just received the delivery of item A in time. So now the production resumed immediately. So in this dashboard, you can also increase or decrease production rates. Uh, what happens when, for example, C is not producing anything, right? So now the inventory, so we still have a lot of inventory left of C at factory, so this is not going to affect much. And now I should actually decrease the production to minimum because we already have enough supply of C. But these are the actions which eventually the software needs to take, right? So for now, for this demo, we are just showing how to take those actions manually. So let's keep this C at this point, right? And let's check what happens when basically we run out of inventory for, let's say, a single supply truck A, right? So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to decrease the production to 0 for A, and I'm also going to clear the entire inventory. So we are simply out of A right now, right? And so let's call this a scenario where there was a strike in A, or there was a fire or some incident, and A cannot produce anything anymore, right? So let's see what how it actually affects your supply chain. So now we have a truck coming, which is like coming to pick up the stuff from factory A, supplier A, and we see that this is currently taking this path, which is short enough. So, but again, we are right now uh, almost 0, right? So this is going to be critical for a factory. So if you don't resolve this situation in time, then you're going to basically lose a lot of revenue, because your sales will stop, because shop is out of inventory. Your factory will not be able to produce in gadgets because A is a critical component, right? So now I already increased the production rate, so we have some inventory left here. And in due time, the pickup truck will basically pick up the item from supplier A, and then it will basically send it to factory B. So, all right. So this is how we are basically, simulating the entire supply chain event. So the interesting point here is the decisions to stop the production or to resume the production or to increase the rates of production. These needs to be taken by, uh, I mean, at the first stage, you need to monitor, right, what's happening in your supply chain. The next step will be that you take these options or take these operations manually. You decide based on human intelligence what it may whether it makes sense or not, right? And the third step of a digital transformation is basically that you let machines decide what is the best way of action. And there are several components which come into this decision matrix. So for example, what is the total length of the supply route between these three factories, right? So that plays a critical role. Secondly, what do you have an alternative suppliers, and how long is the lead time, right? So when you give the order, how long it will be before they produce their first batch, right? And then what will it take to deliver those first batch to the factory, right? So there are literally thousands and thousands of parameters or variables into this equation, right? So that's why it is very complex. But for this demo, we have just simulated this into very simplistic model, which is easy to follow, and you can really see that your net output, for example, right now the shop just ran out of stuff, right? But luckily the truck arrived in time, so we'll see the inventory is replenished, right? But these kind of situations, we need to make sure that they are not uh, frequently happening. So you have to optimize your entire pipeline to produce more outputs, or find a nearby suppliers, right? Or basically create some local warehouse which can speed up the deliveries, right? So these kind of decisions which you need to take on a day-to-day basis. And the purpose of this demo was to showcase the power and flexibility of IoTIFY as a simulation tool. So now I'm going to just walk you through simply the templates which we are using for this demo. So we are simulating every individual element of a supply chain with a single template. So we have factory template running, we have supplier factory template running, we have shop templates running, we have trucks template running. So so this is how we are basically simulating this entire scenario. And I'll just walk you through a sample of a truck. So how complex it is to basically simulate this situation, or simulate this entire logic. So what we are seeing here is it's an HTTP template, which is representing a truck which is owned by supplier A. And supplier A is basically in this template, in the very beginning, we decide who's our supplier. So right now it is A, and then the end goal is factory. And the location of factory and supplier is already available in GeoMap. So GeoMap is a key value store which you could use to which you could use to store supply GPS coordinates. So now what is happening is in the first iteration, you're you're finding out what is my starting point, what is my ending point for the journey for a truck. And since you're starting from a supplier, you're also going to pick up and clean entire inventory of supplier. So glob is glob is another thing which is used to, which is used as a key value store. So the idea of glob, geomap, and gset, these are the three persistent or persistent storage variables and functions which we provide. The idea is to simulate the interaction between simulated objects. So what I'm doing here is the truck is just getting how much inventory is left for my owner. And then if there is an inventory left, then it basically sets this inventory back to zero and puts this entire inventory into its own payload. So now the state.payload will represent the complete inventory of supplier A. Right? So now the truck will drive from state of a starting point to the end point simply by calling this function. One of the interesting point here is that we have interval set as 180, right? So this interval parameter is fastening the speed of the truck. So we are running simulation faster so that you don't have to wait. Otherwise, this becomes very, very slow. This is the return value sent by the truck to the cloud platform. So we have developed a small application which is basically consuming data from all those simulated objects and also showing the dashboard. Here we are sending the location, the current latitude and longitude, the icon. This icon is used to display, and also the name and the payload. So this information you currently see in the dashboard. What we are also doing is once our drive function is finished, so basically this drive function enables us to go from point A to point B. And once this drive is finished, then we take an action. And this action is basically if we have reached the factory, then we unload all what we had to the factory inventory. If we have finished reaching the supplier, then we basically pick up the new payload and clear the supplier inventory. So these are the two actions which we take upon ending our journey at each point. And then once it is finished, we just swap our routes. So instead of start, we now just swap the start and end. And then simply we just get the coordinates of those starts and end and add a little bit of random variation. So now the reason for adding this very little random variation in the GPS coordinates is because every time we want to start a fresh journey. So internally, if we have the same starting and end point for an object, these values are cached. So we just added some more variation to it so that we basically always get the latest traffic conditions. And that's it. So, so what this truck was doing overall, just to summarize, it basically decided its own owner. Then it cleared up the inventory of owner, started driving, and then it will continue driving and then send coordinates. And this condition will be hit as soon as we finish our current drive. Then we just unload the payload or pick up the new payload, swap over start and end, and then drive again. So this was the truck template. And we can see similarly there are different templates like factory, the supplier. These templates are much more simpler. They don't drive because so now again coming back to this demo, we can see that the supply chain operation is going smoothly. We can also monitor here what is the current status of my entire supply chain. So I can see that the factory has run out of inventory now because we decreased the production rate to zero. So let me just simply increase it and let me give it a little bit high. So hopefully this situation should clear up now in a while, and the pickup truck should be there to pick up the components from C. So this is supplier C right now, and let's see. Yeah, so this is a supply truck C. So this should be now coming towards supplier, and then it will pick up the supplies and then drive back to the factory. And then in a few minutes, this situation should be cleared up. And then once the factory starts producing, we will be able to sell stuff again. So now, one of the interesting thing which you can visualize using this model is how interdependent all of these smaller operations, smaller but let's say apparently simple but very very important operations are. So even if a single truck somewhere breaks down, it actually affects your entire supply chain, right? Because there is so much of interdependency. So in order to continue running your operations uninterrupted, you no longer need to basically focus on only the end goal, but you also need to make sure that every component in your supply chain is working. All right. Thanks a lot for your time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at hello@iotify.io. Thank you.